what are we gonna do with all this rain? It is, well, it's been pouring down here. It's finally stopped. I think we're done. I think we're finally done. It rained all day long yesterday. It rained all day long last night. And it wasn't just that yellow and green stuff, it was that red stuff. It was that red stuff. Look, I'll show you. And it's not done. It's not done. So a lot of the country right now is getting it. And it's like pushing on through, and guys, get ready. It's gonna be bad. Now, I don't know what y'all think about this time of the year. It's important. I'm gonna get into this time of the year when it rains. Some of y'all might like it, some of y'all might not. Everyone has these different ideas of what they want to do when it rains. I personally, I actually hate it. I hate when it, I don't mind rain. I hate when it floods, because you never know what to do. It's so unstable when it floods, for the most part. Now there's some lakes and things that it doesn't really matter, and then there's some lakes that just damages bad. That's the hard part. There's so many things when it rains like this, and how it affects each lake is differently, and it affects each lake differently because basically all these lakes are man-made, and so they all have different ways of dealing with rain. Some lakes have just overflow systems, right, where it goes over the dam or it goes over a spillway, so it's never going to get too high. It'll get high, but only for a day or two, right, or 3 days, depending on how it rains, because it's got to go over that spillway. So it can get high. Those lakes are usually, or smaller lakes are usually controlled that way, and so they never really get too high. Those lakes usually get pretty good when it rains, I will say that, because it's never going to get too high, because it instantly starts going over, and those lakes aren't used to getting high. So bass, for some reason on those lakes, they like to get shallow really, really quick, because they know it's not going to be up there very long. It's almost like they never get to see it get high, so like they can't wait for it to get up there. Those lakes usually don't have a lot of like growth, like right at the water level. And what I mean by that is, like, their bushes, maybe they have bushes in the water or things like that, but it's never really great enough to get in all the time, like maybe only in the spawn or something. And so they get up there when it gets like 2 foot of water on, they go crazy for a while. So those lakes are okay. You got some lakes that stay clear the whole time. You got some lakes that stay clear and they all have like runoffs, and so everyone goes and fishes those runoffs, and those are good. Get other lakes with current, they start pulling current in it, and it's good for a while. From what I've seen, a lot of times though on those current lakes, it can get dirty, right? So some lakes get extremely dirty. I don't like those lakes. Those lakes, I don't like when it gets crazy, muddy, dirty, nasty. You get so many different things. So even though I just talked about fish moving up shallow when it rains or when it floods, I'm not that biggest believer on these fish moving shallow when the lake comes up. Now, do they move shallow? Yes, technically, sort of. And what I mean by that is like some fish do. I don't really like sometimes to fish when the lake gets up. A lot of people do. A lot of people really like to fish when the lake comes up. And it's a great way to catch fish sometimes. I don't think it's a great way to catch big fish. And a lot of times what they do, I know a lot of people like to go flip. A lot of people like to go throw a frog and throw all these different things when the lake comes up. I actually don't like it when it comes up like that. A lot of times, depending on the lake. I don't even know. Now I got to think about this. A lot of the lakes, what I see, what happens is it gets good, sort of. I actually like lakes falling way better than rising. How about that? Because everyone's going to tell me about their lake and how they catch them when it gets shallow. I do too, but I personally like lakes falling sometimes in fishing shallow, because I think it's easier and better fishing. I think the other way is like, I just think people really get excited when it comes up. I know, like, even on Rayburn, the bushes all get in the water. They can't wait to go flip bushes. I think flipping bushes is really, really easy on Rayburn. I don't think that's a hard thing to do. So maybe it's just easier for them to catch fish. I think it's a harder way to like catch a lot of big fish and do really good in tournaments and stuff. It's fun, go through tons and tons of rage bugs, and things like that. You might go catch 60 a day, but 50 of them might be like 2 pounds. And a lot of people like doing that. I don't know, something about it doesn't, I don't like fishing that way, where it seems really random when you catch a big one. How about that? That's what I think I've realized. I think catching big ones when the water rises is way more random. And as the water's dropping or staying stable, I think it's easier to pattern those fish and catch multiple big ones. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say in this video. That explains it more. So this time of the year though, and this is what I wanted to make the video on, is interesting, okay? And here's why. I'm always really shocked sometimes when I get random messages from people, or even I talk to people on the water and things like that, and I get one of two things. I either get, and it's April right now, I'm like, hey, are fish on beds on Rayburn right now, or Toledo, or all these lakes I fish? And I'm like, yeah, they've been on beds for a month. And then you got another guy, like an hour later, someone else will be like, man, it's crazy how all these fish are done spawning and they're all out deep, or they're like, it's all done. There's almost none left. And I'm like, and so it's crazy for me to get two different things at the same time. One, they don't know if they're even gotten on beds, and then two, guys like, they're all done. And I'm always sitting here in the middle going, yep, they've been on beds for a month and they're probably gonna be on beds for another month. But you know, it's hard to explain that to people. So what I would say is this, and if you look at that forecast of weather and that rain that's moving across the country, right? I mean, we're talking big states here, right? We're talking states in the southern and states in the middle. And so what happens is you get all these fish that are trying to do other things. And what I mean by that is they're not all trying to spawn. Still got pre-spawners. Okay, we'll start there. You got pre-spawners trying to move up. So they're looking at that rain and the water rise and going, oh, here I go. That's gonna make them push up. It's not gonna make them spawn. It's gonna 100% make those fish push up. Then you got fish on beds that really don't like the water coming up. Now those fish are gonna get off the beds. Most fish don't spawn when the water rises, because then it'll get too deep and they need the sunlight and all that other stuff, okay? So you got those fish that don't know really what to do. They don't really want to leave their bed. They don't really want to move up. They're in limbo. I've always said those are the hardest fish to catch. The fish that are trying to get on a bed and almost there, and then weather disrupts them. Normally that's a cold front. Like, those are the hardest fish to catch. But let's just talk about rain and water levels coming up. And then you got fish that are post-spawn, okay? For me, most post-spawn fish, they want to leave the shallows as quick as possible. Now, shallows are relative. And what I mean by that is they were in 1 foot or 2 foot, and they might want to get to 5 or 6 foot. Now they might go up there for the shad spawn, and they're not going to go necessarily way out there deep, but they just don't want to be on the bank really, because there's nothing there keeping them there. They've already been on the bank. They don't like it. They're like, okay, I got to get off of it for a while. And there's not really anything up there for me, right? If they've already done their spawning process, and if they're not garden fry or doing anything else like that, they're just worried about like recuperating and eating, okay? The shad go up there in the morning time and spawn, but now they've already come back, right? So after the morning time, they're not up there anymore. You got the perch beds haven't really started yet, so they're not necessarily really on perch. So I would say most of them are usually feeding on some type of shad-based forage or other things like that. But the perch really aren't up there really, really crazy like you would see on perch beds. So they're not really concerned about that. The water's coming up, but yet they're wanting to kind of go out. So you've got a fish that's like wanting to go out, but the water's coming up. And so it really doesn't know what to do either. Like, the only fish that you can really count on are those pre-spawners. Now, there's some parts of the country where those there's not that many pre-spawners left. And so, like I said, this time of the year is the strange time of the year, where the water comes up and you got these fish that don't really know what to do with it. Now, fast forward 2 months from now, you know, after the spawn, and when they all start doing the same thing. What I mean by that is they're all starting to focus on some of the same things, right? They're kind of getting out deep. The shad spawn's kind of dwindling away. The brim beds are starting to pop up. The water comes up, the brim go up there, and now you've got all the fish wanting to feed on brim beds, all doing the same thing at once. So you can pattern those fish, right? It's a big giant group of fish all trying to do the same thing. If the shad spawn was going on too that morning, which doesn't really matter if the water's rising, but you got all the fish trying to do the same thing. And so you have a giant groups of fish all in the same stage, whether it's a pre-summertime stage or almost a summertime stage. This could happen in the fall, the winter. You've got fish doing and thinking all the same thing, but right now they've got one thing on their mind and they're trying to adjust with this water. This is the hard part of going, okay, it just rained, I haven't been on the lake, you know, say I'm going tomorrow, I have no idea what the lake's gonna look like. How much rain did we ever really get? That's always a big one. Did we get rain further north, right, to where more water is gonna be coming in there? We're trying to look at our gauge of water and going, well, we got 3 inches here, but what if the lake got 6 inches? But what if above the lake got 10 inches? And this to me is always the hardest time to go out there and really figure it out and really plan on it. Because I'm a guy who likes to plan for my fishing trips to as much as I possibly can. I fish with an open mind, but I'm still going in there with a plan of going, okay, that lake's clear, that lake's dirty, that lake's, you know, it's this level and I know it's in the bushes, or hey, it's this level and it's low, and so there's nothing to be on the shoreline. Say I fish a lot of boat docks, you know, because, you know, we all fish boat docks. What if the boat docks now are, you can't really flip underneath them because the water level is up to the edge of the boat docks? I mean, some of them are floating, I guess. And then now I start thinking about places like Lake of the Ozarks. Lake of the Ozarks, that's a different lake. Table Rock, that's a different lake. You got certain places they're gonna stay really, really clear on the south end, and then on the north end, they're gonna become really muddy. Those boat docks float, you know? Say you had a bunch of fish on the bank spawning, now that's out of the question. Now, do you go for post-spawners or pre-spawners? These are hard questions because, like I said, when you're going for a group of fish like that, before you're going for an entire group of fish, like all the fish in the lake, I'm not saying they're all doing the same thing, but they're all on the same stage. Now you've got, let's call them 3 different stages, right? Pre-spawn, spawners, and post-spawners. So you add up all those fish and you got them in 3 different stages. So you're only maybe trying to fish for a third of them. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I'm not saying it's right, but like if I was maybe fishing for 70% of them, now I'm fishing for 30% of them because they're only in that stage. So to me, this is the hardest time. I wish I had a better solution for you guys, but I'm telling you, I don't. The only thing I'd say is this, is try to do as much homework as you can before you get there. That's even if you got to call around and ask some people like how much range y'all get or whatever, and have a really, really open mind. And when you're out there, what I would suggest, and this is my biggest suggestion, is you better have a whole bunch of rods. Whole bunch of rods, whole bunch of reels, a whole bunch of different things. And what I typically try to do when it's like that, when sometimes you go out there and it's been these kind of floods, I totally look at it from an open point of view. Whereas I'm going, okay, anything can go, anything. And a lot of times I will say this, those fish are sometimes easy to get to bite if you figure out the pattern. That's true. When you figure it out, it's usually fairly easy. The hard part is figuring out that pattern. So I would say keep an open mind, fish a whole bunch of different things, switch constantly. Because usually when you figure it out, usually when you switch, and if any of y'all watched my video yesterday on the Hybrid Hunter Junior Shallow, you know, you can see like so many times I would switch and instantly get a bite. Like that was the better pattern sometimes. This is the same thing. Like sometimes these patterns, it's hard to find, but when you find them, it's really, really easy. I think I just like, oh man, I know that that's gonna be hard to find and I don't wanna miss it. And I'm scared about missing it because it could be anything. And now, in this day and age, I mean, there's so many patterns out there. It's hard to stay on top. I guess maybe some other guys, maybe the guys that do nothing but use live scope, they might not have any of these problems. I don't know. Do they just go, yeah, we're just gonna go live scope so it doesn't matter? I didn't mean to get into that debate, but yeah, maybe you don't have to think about it if all you do is live scope. Maybe that didn't even, maybe none of this video is like, yeah, I don't worry about any of this stuff. I just go out there and put the trolling motor down and start looking around. I don't know. I haven't used live scope enough in flooding conditions to know. So yeah, maybe that's all I should do. Maybe this video was pointless because of that. I don't know. But if not, and if you are the other guy trying to just go out there and figure out the pattern and do all that, man, keep an open mind, guys. That's all I can say. Throw everything you got at them, because eventually when you figure it out, I will say that it's gonna be pretty easy for you and you'll catch them. All right, see you guys.